Hello everyone, I'm Anupam Verma and I'm back again with another cool piece of tech, which is not ready yet, but I'll make it in no time because I believe in myself. I believe in myself. This video will be different from my previous videos as they were a documentary sort of thing, but this is a follow along video where you can see the process of how I made it, the issues that I encountered, and how I solved them. So it's gonna be interesting for you and tedious for me. But, anyways, let's start with its description. So, it's going to be a controller. The word controller itself holds a lot of bad memories.
रुको अब मैं प्रो बन के खेलूंगा.
Does not it look like something made out of a remote control car after you break it and then you reassemble it in a cardboard box and it looks way worse, but you still like it because it's made by you? That's the same case. The controller would be a motion controller which would be shaped like a gun, which you can hold it and play FPS games like Call of Duty or Battlefield. So, in order to make it, we have to take care of two essential things. First is the electronics, second is the design, because obviously electronics is the main part, but a design is fairly more important because who uses a controller that is not ergonomic? Except PlayStation users. So, when we have the design ready and the electronics, we combine them and we have the controller ready. Well, that's easier said than done, so let's start working. So now we're at the workbench and we can start working on our first prototype. And the things that we'll be needing are these. So this is a breadboard, a battery, a joystick module, a gyro sensor, few buttons, and an ESP32, which will act as a computer to connect all these sensors and send signals to the computer, to the actual computer where you can game. So let's start assembling it. So the connections are complete and now we can finally upload the code. I know it looks bizarre, but it will look good when we put it inside the actual case. So let's code it. So now we just have to write some code. Let's do it. And now we have the basic code ready for this, and let's upload it. I got into a problem again. Turns out what I was thinking is not going to work because I was thinking of using the controller as a controller. I mean, taking its input as a controller, obviously, it's a controller, but that's not going to work because assume it is a controller joystick and for the camera, obviously, and when you move it to an extremum value, it gets stuck, and that we don't want because imagine you are holding the gun like this and suppose that's this, I mean, extremum value, and it's continuing to rotate in the game. You will not like it, if you are holding a gun still, you want the game to be still, not moving around, and that's the problem. But that's not the only problem. We have another problem, obviously. Who is coding? Since we are not using a controller input, which is a unified source of input, we have to take the input as a keyboard and a mouse, which will eventually solve the problem of the movement looping, as we are providing the coordinates to the mouse and the mouse will stick to that exact point until and unless the coordinates are changed. And there are separate libraries for the Bluetooth keyboard and Bluetooth mouse for the ESP32. But the problem is that we cannot use them simultaneously, as they both require separate Bluetooth connections to the computer. And it will definitely not work by just including the two libraries. So there are two ways to fix it. One is to write an entire library from scratch, combining both the libraries, and the other is to go to some shady websites where someone else would have written the library in case he got into the same problem as me. So I did what was right, and I went to some shady websites because I was lazy to write an entire library. So after a few hours of searching, I found this guy who wrote this library, and I completely understand every single line of this. So I took some inspiration from his code, and by his code I mean my code. So now we got the code ready again, and it's time to upload it. So I'm done uploading the code and we can finally test it. You see the cursor here, right? Second, it's so hard to control it looking in the camera. So you can see the sensor, right? So it's working for now. The sensor is working. And these buttons are for the left and the right clicks. And this joystick is for the keyboard input of WASD, which works fine, I think. So I didn't test it yet. So the S, the W, the D, and the A. It's lighting up just because I've set the pin number of the joystick to the pin number of the LED on it. So it's working fine, yeah. The left click is working. So everything is ready and now we just have to make the enclosure. And by just I mean 12 hours of unpaid labor. After a bit of searching, I found this guy named Blackfish. He made a model of the infamous M16A4, which you might remember from the good old PUBG days. And also he made it out of cardboard, which will make my job a little bit easier. But it still would be a hell lot of work. So I started cutting the cardboard in the required shapes. And when I had all the parts, I fused them together to form a bigger unit. When I was assembling the gun, I got an idea. The idea was to create a mechanism that simulated a gun reload in real life. So let me explain you how it will work. So assume this is our gun, don't judge my drawing, and this is the magazine. So we put a push button here. So every time you pull the magazine in, the push button gets pressed and it sends a signal to the computer that, oh, someone reloaded. From here I started soldering all the components on the board and secured them in place. So after attaching the suppressor, the barrel, the iron sight and the stock, this is the final product. And after all the efforts, I can say it was all worth it. Let me show you the layout of this. This is the joystick which you can use to move your character around. This is the trigger which enables you to fire weapons. This is the shift key which helps you to run. This is the space bar which helps you to jump. And this is the interact button. Also there's a small button here which you can probably see. This is a relocate button and I'll explain you how it works in a few minutes. And also I implemented a new mechanism here. So what it is actually, it is a capacitive touch sensor. So every time you touch it, it gets notified about it. So what happens is when you put your cheekbone on this for aiming, it sends the signal to the computer to open the scope, and that looks pretty cool. And also this is the reload mechanism that I had been talking about. And it's quite fidgety. So for reference, this is you, and this is the guy she tells you not to worry about. So everything is set up and now we are ready for testing. So the gyroscope is working, the character movement is working too, the other buttons are working too, and the relocate button works fine. So the purpose of the relocate button is to suppose you're in an awkward position like this and you cannot play the game like this. So when you press the button, the game freezes. I mean not the game but the mouse. And when you get in position, you leave the button and it's back to normal. So yeah, and also the reticle works fine too. So when you put your cheek on the sensor, it gets activated. Also when you put a finger or any part of your skin, it opens. So let's have some gameplay. Hello again, thanks for watching the video and I hope you liked it. Also, you can check out my previous videos on my YouTube channel, and you can find the code of the controller on my GitHub, and the link to my GitHub would be in the description. Thank you again for watching the video. This is Anupam Verma signing off.